Hello friends, I'm Rosa, welcome to the channel. So today we are talking about, there's a certain list on Goodreads. I will make sure to link it down below if you want to check it out yourself, but it lists all the top 2022 releases, so the ones that have gotten 3.5 or above of rating that have been read the most throughout this year so far. And I thought it would be fun to go through them, even though the article is a little bit on the older side by now. It's a few months old, but I thought it would be fun to go through it and see which ones I have read and what I thought about those books, since they are technically some of the top books of 2022. So as it turned out, I've read 9 of them, which is not a very surprising, it's not a very large number, but at the same time I'm kind of impressed as well that I have read at least 9 books that were released this year, because I really suck at reading new releases. So I'll make sure to link all of the books in the description box if you want to check them out. There will be links to both Book Depository but also Amazon, so whichever you prefer. If you want to read a little bit more about the books, you can just click on the links. But enough for now. Let's get started talking about these 9 books. But also cheers, stay hydrated. The first book that we're talking about is, and I'm very excited to be talking about this again, it's Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This is technically an adult fantasy. I would probably, I don't know, it kind of feels like a YA at times, but I also see the adult aspect to it, if you will. This book is about our dear main lead girl whose name is Xingyin, and she has grown up on the moon with her mother. Her mother is Chang'e. It's a retelling of Chang'e the Moon Goddess. I think that's what it's called. In this story, Chang'e drank the potion of immortality that was actually gifted to her husband at the time for killing some birds. I'm not gonna get too into it, but he ended up killing some birds. He was rewarded by the celestial emperor and also empress with a potion of immortality. However, Chang'e ended up drinking it, which she was not supposed to do, so she was exiled to the moon. When she drank it, and also when she was exiled, she was pregnant with Xingyin. So they don't actually know that Xingyin exists, that she also lives on the moon. And Xingyin has powers. She has magic, which she has been suppressing for the longest time until suddenly she can't suppress it anymore. And so it ends up flaring up while she's at the moon, which results in the celestial emperor and empress sending people to the moon to check up on Chang'e. Because of this, Xingyin has to flee the moon. And in the process of doing so, she actually ends up in the celestial kingdom. Here she makes various friends, one of them being the crown prince. She ends up studying with the crown prince, also later ends up training in archery. She becomes awesome at it. She goes on various adventures, all with this goal in mind that she wants to free her mother. And that sounds like a lot. There's a lot more in this. It's a beautiful story. What I like most about this is, well, Xingyin as a character is awesome because she's fragile, but at the same time, she's subtly fragile, I would say. At the same time, she's so strong and brave, but she recognizes her fears as well. It's not like she's just running into everything head first. She's not super careful either, but she recognizes that she has fears that she needs to overcome, you know? I love the love story in this as well. There's a love triangle. I don't feel like that is not a spoiler. There's a love triangle in it, and usually I don't care for love triangles. However, I was completely on board with this one. It made sense. It was, I almost want to call it heart-wrenching a little bit, but another favorite thing about this book is the world. The world is beautifully built up. It's just, I have this clear image of the world in my head and I love it. I want to go there even though I'm not invited because I'm not an immortal, but I want to go there and experience this world. It's so gorgeous and it's so whimsical as well. It kind of reminds me of a fairy tale, but think celestial. It's just, I love the concept of it. If you want to see the map, there is even the map is cute, right? It's shaped like there's a moon and it's just so cute. Yes. And lastly, another thing that I want to mention is that I love how this book is not good and evil. You're basically on Xingyin's side and that's it. Like, you will cheer for her, but you will also have to recognize that she's very much on her own. I have so much respect for the character. I feel like she was not a caricature of anything. The fact that she had this like subtle fragility, I hope that's the word, did wonders for her character. So she wasn't overly brave and like naive and, you know. So I understand why this is one of the top 2022 books that have been released this year. I am totally on board. I think I ended up giving it between 4 and 5 stars, possibly between 4.5 and 5. I thought it was so beautiful. Next book that we're gonna talk about, oh gosh, okay. It's Book of Night by Holly Black. This is an adult contemporary fantasy. Well, urban fantasy. We're also dabbling in magic with this one, but I will say I didn't love this, but I also think that a lot of people are on the same page as me when it comes to this book. So we follow Charlie though, who is a bit of a con artist. She doesn't con good people, although I can't actually recall a single person in this book who's like through and through good, which may be a little bit interesting to some of you, but to me, normally that would be an interesting aspect, but I just, no, I don't know. It didn't do anything for me in this book. She usually do her tasks for people that are called glomists. However, recently she's been trying to distance herself from this whole world. She doesn't want to be part of it anymore. She works as bartender, but she works as a bartender that literally these people go visit on a regular basis. So like she's not completely cut off from that world. She also has her boyfriend whose name is Vince that she lives with, and also her sister who she also lives with. Her sister is like very into shadow magic, which is the magic that we're dealing with in this book. And when I say shadow magic, I mean literally your shadow, you can learn to control it. It's very complicated, so I'm not gonna get into it too much. I also don't feel like it was super well described in the book, which probably doesn't help. But that's essentially what they can do. And Posey's like very into it. She wants to be one of these glomists. And regarding Vince, it seems like he might be hiding stuff as well. So she's not without problems at home at least either. Anywho, something happens. She gets contacted. There's this book of, it's not called Book of Night, it's called something else, but it goes missing. And she's told, more or less forced, to go get it for this person. I think that's all I'm gonna say about the story itself. As for, or the plot I should say, as for like the book itself, so the content, I was frustrated while reading this. I was bored. It took me a very long time to get through it. I didn't feel like picking it up. When I was reading it, I didn't feel like continuing reading it. I was having a hard time. It didn't actually do anything for me, not really. Like, not for longer stretches of time at least, until the very end, which is not promising when there is so much text per— oh, there's a ribbon bookmark in this version. When there's so much text per page, I feel like it should— like, this is 300 pages, but it reads more like 500, and it doesn't pick up until the last like 70 pages. I know that this is the first in a trilogy, but it really should pick up before that. I feel like a lot of the dialogue that we got, there was a lot of inner dialogue from Charlie. There's also kind of different, not perspectives, there's a couple of different perspectives now and then, but not a whole lot. It's mainly from Charlie's point of view. But timeline-wise, it goes back and forth between the current, the now, and also Charlie when she was younger, because you kind of learn how she was introduced into this world and how she became a con artist and what she had to go through to get there and everything. And I feel like there was just a little bit too much of the past. Those chapters are literally called the past, by the way. But I feel like there was a little bit too much of it. Like, I get it, you went through stuff to become a con artist, or that's just the term that I'm using for you, but I don't have to be told over and over and over. Like, once or twice is fine, but you don't need to tell me 5 times. We do also enter this as there's a relationship already between her and Vince, which I will admit that I kind of enjoyed for a change. It's not often that they start out being in a relationship, but that said, the relationship and like their chemistry and everything wasn't really shown that well, because they don't really talk much. So we're just told that they're like constantly, from Charlie's thoughts, told actually more or less how she doesn't really trust him that much because she feels like she's hiding something. And then other times she's like, I feel safe with him. He's so like chill. So I don't know, that wasn't really working for me. If there had been banter, if they had actually had more dialogue than they did, I'd probably connected with them as a couple a little bit more than I did as well. So they were just, it didn't really get me. It was long drawn, I didn't like it, it was slow, I didn't get it. So that was Book of Night. I think I ended up giving like 3 on Goodreads, but I don't really know what my actual rating is. Did not enjoy it though, and I'm not sure that I want to do the second one. I'll have to wait and see how other people are feeling about it. They'll be my guinea pigs. If they like it, I'll go for it. If they don't, I know to stay away. So that was Book of Night. Book 3 is Only a Monster by Vanessa Lynn. This is a young adult fantasy, both contemporary, urban, but also historical fiction, because we do have some time traveling going on in this one. So in this book we follow our lead girl whose name is Joan. Joan comes from a family that is a bit eccentric. Her grandmother has, like, throughout the years, time and time again told Joan that she's a monster. We're all monsters. And Joan is just like, good joke, Grandma, it's so funny. Until one day, something happens. Joan is supposed to go on a date with someone she knows from where she works, or is it school or something? She has a nerdy job. She works at like a museum kind of building, and her coworker has asked her out on a date. So as she is out and about that day, not on her date, but before the date, something happens. A guy gets a little bit too close to her. She ends up touching his neck and is basically teleported forward in time. This, for very good reasons, freaks Joan out, because why is it suddenly night? So she hurries home. Everyone can see that something's wrong. Something's happened to Joan. They kind of put 2 and 2 together, and it turns out that this entire time they've all known that they had these powers, but they've just decided not to tell Joan. The only one who's actually told her is her grandma. So as it turns out, how their powers work is that they actually take time off of other people's lives so they can use the time travel either forward or back in time. So they're actually not the good guys in this situation, because they're stealing people's time. So in this story, they are the monsters, and also the guy that she was supposed to go on a date with just happens to be a monster hunter. After something happens with Joan's family, she finds herself having to travel back in time. Also, she gets help from this like rivaling monster family heir, who's called Aaron, and a lot of stuff goes down from there. And this was a fun read. I had a good time with this book. I enjoyed it immensely. It's definitely very YA, but I enjoyed this whole, like, Joan is also very persistent in her, oh my gosh, we're monsters point of view, like, throughout the whole thing, even though Joan is not necessarily a bad person either, but like she's still willing to take people's time. And it was really cool seeing or reading the book from that point of view, when technically you should be cheering for the monster hunter. I don't know, I think for me, I liked Joan as a character too much to actually cheer for, what's his name, Nick? I think his name is Nick. His name is Nick. So I don't know. Joan was awesome as a character. I really liked her, even though like half the time she's a little bit confused. There's a little bit of a love triangle in this one, but also a little bit of an enemies to lovers, but like the love part, the romance part of this book is definitely not the focus per se. Like it's not a big part of it, I would say. The bigger part of it is this like family thing, because Joan is such a family person. Like she's willing to do everything to save her family, so that was definitely a bigger part. This is also Vanessa Lynn's debut, but even though it was a debut, it felt very comfortable to read. It did not feel choppy in any way in the writing. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't too confused at times with the descriptions or anything, so overall just a very pleasant young adult fantasy book with like a little bit of historical fiction in there. Although I would mainly say, well, would time travel be considered science fiction? Am I being too specific at this point? Yeah. I enjoyed it. I think I ended up giving it a little bit more than 4 stars. And I'm really, really excited for the sequel. I think that's coming out in January, so we won't have to wait too long. But it was a really, really good book. Yeah, definitely can recommend if you're looking for a young adult fantasy written from a different point of view than the typical one, and yes, an actual monster, not just someone who says they're a great character, but like is actually doing bad things, but still like you still sympathize with them. And if you also don't want the romance part to be too big, but are okay with expecting a little bit more from book 2, that's a good one. Let's talk about 2 books that I don't have as physical copies before we do the last 4. So I read Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, and this is an adult contemporary romance. It's about our lead girl who ends up in a town after she ran away, fled her wedding, basically. So once she gets to this town, everyone's treating her like she's the worst person on the planet, and she is incredibly confused. She enters a bar and is immediately thrown out of there by the owner. I was about to say the bartender. I think he's also bartending at the time, but the owner is like, no, you are out of here, and she's like, I have not done anything. The bartender was actually nice to her. Like, he saw through this because he knew that she wasn't her twin. Her twin is an awful person. They're all thinking that she's her twin. So that's why they're also mad at her, because her twin sucks. I just wanna, like, just so you know, her twin is like the worst person ever. She sucks. And just to completely set this in, like, so you understand how much her twin sucks, she ends up stealing our lead girl's car, steals some cash from her, takes off, and leaves her daughter there alone. Her young, like, 11-year-old daughter just left there on her own. So our lead girl ends up taking care of her niece while staying at this town. She gets a little bit close to the bar owner, who's very much like, I don't do high maintenance women at all, you're too much for me, but I kind of like you at the same time. There's a lot of tropes in this book, and somehow I didn't really notice them as I was reading, but when I think back on it, I'm like, so many tropes, and it was so much fun, but also a slow burn. We're talking small town, single mom. She's an aunt, but still single mom. Fake dating, haters to lovers a little bit. I'm pretty sure I'm missing some, but there's a lot, like a whole lot. And they just worked in this one. Grumpy Sunshine as well. She is the sunshine, he's the grumpy one. He's very, very grumpy. Like, he's super grumpy. And it was just so much fun. I liked how this was written as well. This is the first one in, just to clarify, like, the sense of humor in this book. I feel like the title of the series, because this is the first one, there'll be others. I'm assuming from other points of views, not hers, but so like they'll all be standalones. This was definitely not the first in a series like that. But just to like give an idea of what the humor is like, the series is called Knock 'Em Out, which is what the city is called. The town that they're in is called Knock 'Em Out. Like knock them out. I shouldn't have to explain that. But anyway, I thought it was so funny. Maybe I thought it was funny because I didn't realize throughout reading the whole book, and then I went on Goodreads and I saw the title again, and I was just like, I took 2 seconds longer to read it than I normally would have throughout reading the book, and it just hit me, and I was like, that's such a stupid name for a town. Anyway, it probably does not show the humor very well. I thought it was funny. But no, this book is charming, it's cute, but it's touching at the same time. It's not like super rom-com in that way. Think like, it's not as slow burn as Mariana Zapata, but still slow burn, and then just with a little bit more humor. And it just worked so well. I enjoyed it so much. I'm looking forward to the sequel so much. I don't know who the point of view is gonna be, but I'm excited to find out. I hope it's gonna be a character that I like as well, because our lead girl, I think was her name Daisy? Or was that just his nickname for her? Her name is Naomi, but Knox, our lead guy, keeps calling her Daisy because when she arrived, she still had daisies in her hair from her wedding, because, you know, she ran off. So like, they, both the characters have, I would say garbage. I'm in baggage. This is going great. They both have baggage that they have to work through, and it's nice and just lovely to see them work through it together. Meanwhile, being a little bit hesitant with their relationship, but at the same time just really wanting each other, and I really loved it. So yes, if you're looking for slow burn, but not as slow burn as Mariana Zapata, but just with a hint more humor, I would highly recommend Things We Never Got Over. It was cute. I adored it. So I think I actually ended up giving it about 5 stars, but if not a complete 5 stars, then at least very close, because I just had a very good time with it. The other book that I don't have a physical copy of is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. So I just want to preface this by saying that I'm a sucker for Colleen Hoover's books. books, but in reminders of him, we follow Kenna, who is just out of prison. She's been away for 5 years and have gone back to her hometown. Basically trying to start over, but also trying to get in contact with her 4-year-old daughter who she gave birth to while in prison. She had been serving time because of a terrible mistake that she made one night, and this mistake, as it turns out, still has consequences 5 years later. So while she's trying to get close to her daughter, it turns out that basically everyone is trying to freeze her out of their lives. They don't want to have anything to do with her. The only person that she can get in contact with, really, who will actually listen to her, is the bartender. Again, another bar. Anyway, whose name is Ledger. He's a bartender at the bar that she shows up to on her first day, and he just happens to see something is wrong with her and kind of slowly starts to take her under his wing, because it's not easy for someone who just got out of prison to basically just get by. But them knowing each other might also have consequences. And I'm not gonna get into why, but it's a whole thing. This was typical Colleen Hoover, basically punches you in the face, punches you in the stomach, tears out your heart, clenches it, and then gives it back to you, but it's completely broken at that point. Was that metaphorical enough? Colleen Hoover's books are very much, some of them are kind of like almost toying with the line of toxic, I would say. Like, they definitely touch on some sensitive subjects. I would say this one is definitely not an exception, but less so than, for example, Ugly Love. But it was, I think I teared up at some point, which for me takes a lot still. I don't tear up at movies, never have. Except for Moulin Rouge. But other than that, never teared up at movies. It takes a lot for books to make me tear up, and this one did actually, at one point at least, make me tear up, so it got to me a lot, I would say, even though I have no way of kind of putting myself in Kenna's shoes whatsoever, like none. But I think that it shows Colleen Hoover's writing is very effective. She also, I think she's a woman with a good sense of humor, because sometimes you do see it in her books, even though they're definitely touching on very, very serious subjects. They're not fun books in any way, but they do have a little bit of humor sprinkled in now and then. But before going into any of them, I would highly recommend looking up on trigger warnings. This one is not an exception. It was very touching though, and very sad. Very, very sad. Like, extremely sad. Kenna has such self-destructive thoughts that I think that's what got to me the most. Like, you're just wanting to yell at her, like, please feel better or something. Like, you're worth more than you think you are. I don't know, anyway. But it was very touching, very sad. So if you want one of those books, Reminders of Him is a pretty good one to go with. Yeah, you want to cry? Feel free. And so we're left with 4 books. Next up we have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by XCO. This is a young adult fantasy. It's so cute. I love it. So in this book we follow Mina. Is her name Mina? Mina, yeah. Who is, as a character, I love her. She's cute, super cute. But she lives in a village that has been ravaged by storms throughout many, many generations. It's said that if they sacrifice the right girl to the sea god, the storms will basically stop. And the next one to be sacrificed is actually Mina's brother's beloved, Shim Chung. But Mina cares so much for her brother. She knows he would be heartbroken if Shim Chung was sacrificed for this purpose, so she ends up taking Shim Chung's place and sacrifices herself instead. Due to the sacrifice, she jumps into the sea and ends up in the spirit realm, where it turns out that the sea god is actually asleep. So to get him to wake up and stop these storms from destroying the lands, she takes out on a mission with the help of some friends, but is also dealing with people that don't, or spirits that don't want the sea god to wake up. I read this during a readathon, so like details-wise, I'm a little bit fussy, but as far as I remember, this was super cute. A little bit confusing at times, and a few points that were repeated a little bit, but I think there was a point to it. I just can't really fully get into, like I said, fussy details. But I do remember that I thought it was entertaining. I thought Mina was a cool character. I think I wanted the world to be built up a little bit more, just have a clearer picture of what everything looked like and how it worked. There were certain things that were explained, but I just felt like it wasn't really like completely enough. Axio's writing in this is also very pleasant, so that is definitely something worth noting. And the love story in this is also a little bit on the cuter side, so that is a thing. I would definitely give this a reread at some point, actually. It was also a very short read, because it's not on, I think it's like 312 pages. Okay, 320, so it's not like, but it's a YA, so it's 320 with like, you know, big letters and space between the sentences and stuff. So you could definitely breeze through this in one sitting very easily. And it's definitely also pleasant enough and entertaining enough to do that. So I enjoyed this a lot. I thought it was just, yeah, very pleasant, very cute. I like how all my physical books on the shelf right now are Fairy Loot editions. That was not done on purpose, but okay. So if you're looking for like, oh, this is also a retelling of a Korean story, by the way. But if you're looking for something that, I wouldn't necessarily say it's like full-on fairy tale vibes, but like maybe a little bit close. Something that has humor, something YA fast-paced, where the love story doesn't take up too much time either. This is a very good one, especially if you want to read something in one sitting. So yes. Speaking of books you can read in one sitting, I have also read Gallant by V.E. Schwab, which is a young adult horror. Is it? Gothic horror? Yeah, I would say it's horror. So in this book, we follow our lead girl, whose name is Olivia. 3 things to note about Olivia is she's an orphan, she's mute, and she can see ghouls. The last one is not common, by the way. You're not supposed to be able to see ghouls, but Olivia can. She has been an orphan since she lost her mother very abruptly, and her father just kind of like phased out, and like it was a weird situation. So the only thing she has left from her parents is actually her mother's journal. She is at an orphanage, or an all-girls school, I should call it, because in reality that is what it is, until one day she receives a letter from, I believe it's her uncle or it's her cousin, her uncle that she's never met. And the letter basically says something like, come back to Gallant, which is this building family estate that they own. So she's sent off to Gallant, but when she gets there, it turns out that her uncle has actually been dead for several years. It's all very strange. She has to adjust to life here at Gallant, and her cousin is there, but she can't really talk to him. She doesn't have, like, she's mute. He doesn't do sign language, so there's a bit of a communication issue there. Luckily, one of the servants at the house actually does sign language, so they can communicate, but she's not really getting a lot of information out of any of them. All she's told is that after night, she needs to stay inside the house, and at no point is she allowed to go through the gate in the garden. However, Olivia is a girl with a lot of questions and not so much patience for answers, so I also read this during a readathon. The details again are a little bit fuzzy, but I remember that I enjoyed this. It's definitely like, it's a very, very quick read. There is literally 30 pages or something that are just letters as well, or journal pages. So you can easily read this in one setting if you want to. It was also written, V.E. Schwab said that it was actually written to be read in one sitting. You're supposed to just, that's how you're supposed to read it. Of course you don't have to, but that's recommended. It also definitely gave me the spooky vibes, even though I read it in February. I think I read it, no, March, because I read it when it came out. But it would be a very good late year read, say like October or November. I will note that V.E. Schwab's writing is like near perfection to me. I just love it. But the only reason, or one of the only reasons, that I'm not necessarily super in love with this book is because it's so much on the thinner side. I think I like V.E. Schwab's adult works a little bit more than her YA, but I'm only basing that on Gallant though. I haven't read her other YA books. But that said, like, I love Darker Shades of Magic and also Addie LaRue. Addie LaRue is a perfect book, so I don't remember being annoyed with the pacing in this one. I would say maybe a little bit confused at times, not frustrated at any point, but would have maybe just wanted a little bit more of it, you know? So if you're looking for a short, again, one sitting kind of book, especially here for, you know, late 2022 when we're nearing the end of the year and people are being desperate, getting desperate to finish up their reading goals, and maybe you just need like a quick little horror kind of spooky read. Gallant is a pretty good, I would say a pretty good one to go with, to be honest. But that's it. I wasn't wowed at it, I think. I think I would give it probably like 3.8 or something in stars. If we want to be a little bit specific, I think I gave it 4 on Goodreads, but it's probably like a little bit below 4. So our second last book is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy I. Lin. This is another young adult fantasy, and it's based on, I'm pretty sure it's Chinese mythology. I know it's Chinese, but I think it's mythology. In this book, we follow Ning, who has learned to brew magical tea. She lives with the knowledge, though, that she has by accident killed her mother by brewing poisonous tea, and her sister is currently, as the book starts, also suffering from this poison. So when she hears word that the emperor, the kingdom, is looking to find its next, a master of the ancient art of making tea, magical tea, I don't remember exactly what the title is, but she takes off to the capital to compete in this competition to become the next Shenongxi, because she knows that if she wins the competition, she'll actually have a chance to cure her sister. But as it turns out, people at court suck. The competitors are not nice. They cheat, they play dirty. They're generally just not nice people, and Ning has a hard time making friends. She does end up making one friend, but also slowly gets to know a handsome stranger. Or actually, as it turns out, not so slowly, but we'll talk about that in a second. She gets to know a handsome stranger who might have some secrets, and the competition is hard. So that's what I want to say about the plot. I remember being slightly bored at times while reading this. I also remember being very confused about the tea. I like the whole concept so much going into it, and I think I still like it. I would just have enjoyed maybe some descriptions or like explanations that I would have understood a little bit more than the ones I was given. But the whole concept is very cool. It's very unique. As for the love story, I think I liked her friendship with one of the characters more than the love story. And that is because the love story happens so quickly. Like, it's definitely insta-lovey, and that is something that I just do not vibe with at all. Like, I don't like it. It makes me annoyed. I'm sure there are people out there who are able to like fall so quickly, but we're talking like second meeting here, and that's just it's a little bit too fast for my liking. So this all like very all or nothing kind of approach to love stories I just don't really enjoy. That said though, I love the competition aspect to it. Ning as a character, I also adored. I don't remember her being annoying at any times. And also I just want to point out that the cover is the most beautiful cover that I've seen this year, I'm pretty sure, so that is worth noting as well. Oh, speaking of, I completely forgot my tea. Oh, well, yeah, that's cold. But would I still recommend this? I think so. I don't think it was bad per se, I just think there was room for improvement, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And the insta-lovey thing is very from person to person. Some people just probably don't mind it. It's just me who's like, it jars me almost. But if you're one of the people that don't really mind an insta-lovey story because it doesn't annoy you in the same way that it does me, you probably still get along with it, to be honest. I would just have loved a little bit more explanation on the tea system, but that could also just be because I didn't get it. Like, again, it could be like a personal thing, but yeah, I think that's all I gotta say. I still want to read the sequel. I think she's standing a little bit too far back. I still want to read the sequel, which is called A Venom Dark and Sweet? A Venom Dark and Sweet? That sounds about right, but it might not be. Anywho, let's talk about the last book, and that is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. You guys knew it was coming. Listen, okay, I am a sucker for Sarah J Maas. Okay, I'll full on admit it. I will be biased, but also this is amazing. So this is the sequel to House of Earth and Blood. I am not going to be talking specifics about what goes on in House of Sky and Breath, but House of Earth and Blood is about Bryce Quinlan, who is a demi-fae, so she has a human mother, but her father is a fae. He's actually, to be more specific, the Autumn King, so he's like a very influential fae in Crescent City. That does not make him a good guy, by the way, I just want to point that out. But Bryce Quinlan is very much a party girl, but do not think that means she's superficial. She's definitely not. She just likes to party. She likes to have fun. She loves to dance as well. She loves to, you know, do her thing, have fun on basically every evening. Her favorite people are her friends. She's both friends with a pack of werewolves, but also a couple of other not people, but I don't know what else to call them, so we're gonna go with people. And like I said, her friends are basically everything to her. So one night when Bryce is out partying with some of her friends, she gets home and actually finds her other friends murdered in her apartment. This completely breaks Bryce's whole world. She's heartbroken. There's been a string of murders throughout the city before this, so they find the murderer pretty quickly and throw him in jail. However, a year later, the murders actually start to pick up again, so Bryce finds herself in the middle of the investigation. She has to help the police because for some reason the police don't know how to handle this case on their own and thought to bring Bryce into it. She's a little bit reluctant, but ends up helping them out and actually has to team up with this guy whose name is Hunt to find who the murderer actually is. And Crescent City is like, I think it's actually called Lunatheon? Lunatheon, yeah. Crescent City. It's like, think super modern and then take every single supernatural creature that you could possibly think of and place them here, including dragons. They're there too. Everything is in Crescent City. We also have mermaids. You know, everything is in Crescent City. So I loved the first one. I basically read it in one day, which arguably you should not do because it's 800 pages and it's an adult book. But I read it in one day. I have no regrets. This one took me a little bit longer, but solely because I didn't have time. I loved this so much. These books are very much like both House of Sky and Earth and Blood and House of Sky and Breath are very much like, you'll get to points where you're just like, what is happening here? Like, is something even happening? And then all of a sudden, something that she's mentioned on page 300 that you didn't necessarily think about a lot is important to the plot. So like when you read them, you gotta pay attention and then memorize everything on 800 pages. It's very fun. But my selling point of this story, I would say, is definitely Bryce. I love Bryce so much. I think my favorite out of Sarah J Maas's characters are it's still Selena, but Bryce is a close second. I feel like those two kind of swap around a little bit. I adore her. I adore her for just being her. She is beautiful. She cares about her clothes. She cares about her hair and her nails, but at the same time, I can't say because that'll be a spoiler. Oh wait, no it's not. She knows how to shoot a gun. Like she's a badass who looks good and badass while being a badass, and I love her for it. I love her attitude, how she just does not take any BS. So she's definitely like one of the main highlights for me when it comes to the series. But, and if you've read this series, I can't really say what is making this. Like, I squealed at the end. Squealed doesn't cover it. I was yelling out loud in my apartment at like 3 a.m. because that's when I finished it. I had no care in the world, and it was a what the you know? It was one of those moments. I've gone back to read the ending like 5 times as well since then because I just want to relive it. I can't, but I want to. And it really, like, I pretty much quoted myself in my review on Goodreads, so if you want to know exactly what I said, you can read it over there, but I was in shock. I screamed. This is good. We do dive into their relationship a little bit more in this one compared to the first one. The first one is definitely a bit of a slow burn, whereas this is not, because they're already kind of together. So romance-wise, there's a little bit more of that in this one than there is in the first one. Plot-wise, there's a whole lot going on, but we get a little bit more described in this one compared to the first one. And that's really all I can say. I can't fully sell this because I can't tell you the ending, but yeah, you need to read it, okay? Thank you. So I don't think I said, but this is adult urban fantasy, and think like fae and angels and werewolves and more fae. Yeah, and also Bryce and a lot of very handsome men. But that's it for these 9 books. So if you've read any of them, let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with any of my opinions of them as well? Let me know. If you've read any of the other books on the list, also let me know. And if I should read them, definitely let me know. But that's all I got. So I hope you all enjoyed this. Again, there are links to the books in the description box down below if you want to check them out more than, if you want more descriptions or more synopses than I gave you, you can find information in the description. But that is all I got for you guys today. So I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to hit the thumbs up. And also if you want to stick around for more videos like this, but also wrap-ups, TBR videos, readathons, bookish unboxings, and you know, all the booktube stuff, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button. But I'm gonna leave you to it. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, you know you're beautiful.